When you're thinking about the traditional car makers, I bet the brand that springs to mind when I say the word environment is Volvo, isn't it? Certainly does for me. Which is what makes this car, the XC40 Recharge, and Volvo's first all-electric model, just a little bit disappointing. But before I tell you exactly why this car has ever so slightly let the side down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, switch on those notifications and leave a comment below. We've waited quite a while for the XC40 Recharge. When it was announced more than a year ago, we thought it was going to plug a big gap in the market. It would be more affordable than the big electric SUVs from Audi, Mercedes and Jaguar, and above the smaller models like the Nissan Leaf, the Hyundai Kona and the Kia e-Niro. But since then, there have been a raft of other launches into this space, including the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Volkswagen ID.4. And it won't be much longer before we finally get our hands on the Tesla Model Y. And if you don't mind your SUVs being a little less boxy, there is always the Polestar 2, which actually is pretty much the same car as the XC40 underneath, but is less expensive and more efficient. Now that might come as a bit of a surprise because let's face it, a Polestar isn't exactly an inexpensive car, but this particular version of the XC40 Recharge costs £10,000 more than the entry-level Polestar 2. But this won't be relevant to most people, say Volvo, as you won't be able to go into a dealer and buy one in the conventional way. In fact, you can only buy a Recharge online through a subscription package. You don't even pay a deposit. It simply costs £649 per month for the 3-year, 30,000 mile contract, which even includes the servicing. And this is the only version you can buy, or at least subscribe to, and it's called the P8. Now, I have some more surprising figures here for you, this time around performance. So you've got two motors powering the front and the rear wheels, giving a total of 402 brake horsepower. And that, my friends, is more than a Porsche 911 pumps out. In fact, each of these two motors is more powerful than the top of the range petrol engine in the XC40 lineup. This gives the Volvo some pretty amazing acceleration, a 0 to 60 time of less than 5 seconds in fact, which is faster than some Ferraris from just a couple of decades ago. But if you're more worried about towing a caravan than setting speed records, then the XC40 has the pulling capacity of 1,500 kilograms. And if you don't use too much of that performance, the official figures suggest it will be reasonably efficient, going 257 miles before needing to charge the 78 kilowatt hour battery, although not with the caravan, I imagine. But according to our test, that figure isn't really bang on. Driving reasonably carefully in what has been admittedly colder conditions, I've been getting 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour, which gives a real world range of 220 miles. I also find it a bit annoying that they've gone down the route of showing the efficiency in kilowatt hours per 100 miles. I prefer to see mine in miles per kilowatt hour. I just find it more straightforward. And when you need to plug in, it will accept one of the new 150 kilowatt rapid chargers, which will get you to 80% battery capacity in about 40 minutes. The rest of the interior is standard XC40, which means you get great quality interior, it's really well built and it's generally a really lovely place to be. The boot is a little bit smaller than on the standard models, but you do have the benefit of a front compartment under the bonnet to store charge cables in. It's going to fit 5 people in here pretty comfortably. Although rather surprisingly for an electric car, you do have this big tunnel still down here, which means that the centre passenger doesn't get much legroom. Another thing that's quite disappointing, particularly for a company like Volvo, whose focus is so much on safety, is the positioning of the child seat. It's absolutely fine when it's like this, but as you wait till those children grow, and my don't they shoot up quickly, look at it now. You can't get it back properly. And this headrest is fixed and will not budge. I guess it will be fine if you're using the Volvo specific car seat, but that's a bit cheeky if you ask me. Back in the front, and it's all about tech. This is the first Volvo to feature the new infotainment system, which is powered by Google's Android operating system. Along with Polestar, which has the same setup, it's by far the best voice recognition of any car we've tried. And just like Tesla's, it will get updates over the airwaves, so it can have all the latest apps and software. You wake up one morning and your car will have upgraded itself.
But as lovely as it is in here, I can't help feeling a little disappointed. I think I just expected something a bit more different for Volvo's first all-electric car. And there are some slightly lazy touches in here, like this cover on the spot where you would normally find the start button for the petrol or diesel models. But let's see if it drives as well as we hoped and was worth the wait. Oh, to be honest, here's that word again. I'm disappointed. Look, this car has some great qualities, and on the motorway at speed or out on smooth roads, it feels very solid and confidence inspiring. But as you might just be able to see, on slower roads like this, roads that are particularly bad, you get really jostled about because the suspension just doesn't do a good enough job of ironing out the lumps and bumps on country roads like this or on speed bumps in town. And you can feel it even more because these seats are pretty firm. Comfortable and relaxing to drive, this version is most definitely not. Oh, there you go again. Ouch.
That's normally something you get with sporty cars, and it means the car will be really flat and stable through corners. But the XC40 just isn't. It leans over when you turn, accelerate or brake hard. I suspect this is because the XC40 has to be able to cope with all the power on tap, while still keeping its considerable weight under control too. And that's some pretty tricky physics to get around. So it has that stiff suspension, big heavy brakes, and these huge 20-inch wheels with low profile tyres, which don't give any squishiness when you're going over broken road surfaces.
The truth is, this car just doesn't need that much power. It's just not that sort of car. Look, it might be fun once in a while to show off or have bragging rights in the pub about the acceleration, but it's not something that you're going to be using every day. And it means you have to put up with all these compromises like bumpy roads. It just doesn't make sense to me, and it's not what I want from a family car like this.
And that is a real shame. Now, there are more XC40s coming soon, which will have smaller batteries, which will make them lighter, and they'll have less power too. They'll be cheaper as a result, and I expect they'll make far more sense in every way. It's those versions that I hope will make the electric XC40 the car I really wanted it to be.
But by then, Tesla may have finally managed to get the Model Y to these shores, and that could present another problem for Volvo's electric dreams.
If you're in the market for an electric family car, then make sure you check out our review of the VW ID.4 and Skoda's new Enyaq, which we're pretty impressed with. And please do subscribe to the channel and don't forget to turn those notifications on.